The NFL stands for not for long.
Set, Sharga and Armstead. Roll out, Walker still running out. Looks to the left, wide open, Thompson touchdown. Colin Thompson with the touchdown. There was nobody within 20 yards of
What a catch off the bobble. Colin Thompson scoops it up.
Lofting corner, the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. The first NFL touch for Colin Thompson is a score.
That's right. Welcome back. Colin Thompson Show. Jack Connell. I got people coming. I mean, I guess people are listening to the show, which is good. That's fun. But, I mean, the ego on this guy, but his lawn. I do have some breaking news about my lawn, Jack. But before I do, I got to talk about Kent Johnston's joining the show today, folks. Kent Johnston. Bud, we call him. One of, if not, the best human beings I've ever encountered in this 30 years of life for me. Intelligence, grace, walk softly, carry a big stick, knowledge, whatever adjective you're going to throw behind someone who's really smart and has awesome demeanor and looks at things from a holistic perspective. That guy is great. His book is fantastic. You guys are going to love this interview. I don't have enough amazing things to say about Ken Johnston and his impact on me, the Carolina Panthers, a lot of human beings that have come through the different places where Ken has worked throughout his time in the NFL, his time in college football, private sector. It's tremendous. Enjoy. And everything we do here, guys, brought to you by our friends over at Boron USA, Arnica Flour, a natural product. Natural product. Kent would love this stuff. A natural product that is just fantastic. You don't get the backlash from meds where you're taking something, the next day you wake up groggy. Homeopathic care, it's arnica, made from a flower. It's a natural product. So the pain relief gels, the stuff to help me with some of the back pain I've had from the football days, still trying to go here, Jack, in the back. Some free agent news too. We'll see, buddy. A lot of tight ends going down, pal. Also, their products with allergies were huge in the spring for me. Even the summer with stuff blowing around and these new storms coming in and stuff blooming again after dying. I love their stuff with that. The sleep stuff, the stress, some of the hangover stuff they do too is pretty good. So check them out, guys. BoronUSA.com. Love their product. Any questions, reach out to me about it. And our friends over at Boron USA, we really appreciate your love and support. Jack in the back. How is the lawn? Give us an update. The people want to know if you've mowed it this week.
The lawn's in shambles. It's been ruined since that June heat. There's a reason I really haven't brought it up much. It's because the heat ruined it. We put down new seed. It was beautiful in April and some in May, if I remember my timeline correctly.
Okay.
And once it finally was starting to settle, we got that massive heat wave, killed all the roots, just a dust bowl out there. My disappointment's immeasurable. My summer is ruined. So we'll strike again next fall.
Well, I was worse, Jack. I was worse. Now, my lawn has been in shambles for quite some time. People before me, great people. House we bought here in Annapolis, awesome peeps. But, you know, they got rocks in the middle of the lawn to help a walking pad out to the back shed, right? That killed half the lawn, right? Just not a lot of stuff to really make this lawn pop. We got here and it's been a mess. Trying to grow, trying to do stuff. I'm laying down fertilizer. I'm cutting the lawn thin. I'm cutting it high. Everything. I'm reading the stuff. I'm on this. I cut it too thin. I put some fertilizer down in the wrong time. It ended up being dry, Jack. Dry. I laid it down, and after that, pal, the sun fried the lawn. Fried it. So you know what? I said, you know what, Jack? I'm done with this shit. I called my boys, Freddie, Jose. I said, listen, they're great. The guys come over. Fantastic. Fantastic men. We love, I go out and help them, Jack. I'm not just one of those guys that just hires the guy and then says, hey, no. I'm like, what can I do?
You're one of those, dude. You're one of those dads.
I don't get involved and say what, this is how you should do it. I say, where's the heaviest shit? I'm going to pick it up for you. So when we mulch, I take the wheelbarrows and I'll take buckets and I'll farmers carry everything. I won't do the wheelbarrow, Jack. I'll take 5-gallon buckets or I'll take a trash can and lift the damn thing up. So it's my workout, and they love it. And they love it because they don't have to haul the shit. So it's a win-win. We work together. It's a blast. I'm bumping music. Great. Now, not all the time, but I would say 75% of the time I'm with them doing stuff. Or I'm like splitting wood in the back as they're like mulching. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not this guy inside, Jack, eating quiche. These guys are dying in the heat in jeans and a long sleeve, and I'm over here sipping on a water. I'm bringing them waters. We got lunch, whole nine. First class, Jack. First class. So I digress. The other day we're out front. I'm with the guys. A tree fell down our backyard. Middle of my Sirius XM show last week. Okay. It sounded like a gunshot in the backyard. It was that loud. Crack, crack, crack. Like right out this window right here. So I come upstairs. I get a text from my wife. Everything's fine. You got to come see this during break. So I come up the steps, dude. The freaking tree drops. It missed every new bush we planted, every new flower bed. It landed right in the lawn didn't touch another tree. It couldn't have landed any better. Away from the house. We got so lucky. We had like a 15-minute storm last week that blew through like 60-mile-an-hour gusts. The tree was coming down anyways. Half the tree died. The tree guy said, you'll be fine. We've had some bad storms and it hasn't come down. You'll be good. Well, it drops. So the tree guy comes the next day, 7 a.m. We try to tell our neighbors. They didn't answer the door. 7 a.m., Jack, he's running the wood chipper. I mean, loud. These things are loud, as you know. They are not quiet. I got all the firewood, the whole nine for the thing, right? So the backyard's destroyed. They dig the roots out. So I'm leveling the backyard out. I'm looking at it. I'm like, all right, we're going to lay seed down. It's going to take a month, 2 months to grow in full, whatever. We got the dog. We got the new baby. We're talking. We're going at it. But we're, not going at it, but we're talking with the guy. I'm like, guys, like, this is going to be a mess. My dog's paws in the house are going to be covered in mud. He's going to be tearing up the grass seed. There's going to be birds all over the backyard. It's going to be a shit show. I said, just give me a price on the sod. Like, give me the price on the sod. Give me a good price. Good price. Probably because I work with them all the time, Jack. First class. So I said, okay. What's the sod price? So I'm going to sod the yard, Jack. I'm going to sod the yard. I'm going to be that guy in the neighborhood. I'm going to be that guy. I didn't want to be that guy. I'm a little pissed, but I'm fighting crabgrass. I'm fighting. This is zoo. It's a zoo. I'm not. So we're starting fresh. I don't want to deal with any BS. I'm going to take a couple courses online too, to make sure I'm taking great care. I'll be out there with the scissors every day, Jack. So there's the tea. What are your initial thoughts as lawn master, the man? They already started too, by the way, Jack. I mean, when I go up these steps, there's going to be sod. I can't wait to see it. I'm going to lay down.
You're the Brian Urlacher of Annapolis, Maryland now, apparently.
Why? Because he's bald and he has hair all of a sudden?
Well, yeah, you got a hair transplant. You're doing a grass transplant.
Yeah, it's tough. I just, the Bucks County guy, Jack.
I mean, it's not a bad thing to do. Oh. I don't shame whatsoever. Okay. I'm more of a, like, everything's sort of there. It's my old neighbor who has since passed. He went out he was all like for the graphs, like the golf, like turf, like the Bermuda, like everything. Their lawn is perfect. Okay. Ours is a little mixture of the things, but we're working on it. And that'll be a next year. The first goal is to just get a full yard of grass and not have this dust bowl that we had this summer because of this heat. So maybe that's installing sprinklers, but that's way too expensive.
Pricey, it's pricey. And it's just, I just said, screw it. I just said, you know what? Said it was like a couple, whatever more. And we looked at each other, my wife and I, and she's like, the sod's going to work. The grass could be hit or miss. So we're rocking and rolling, Jack. Everything we do here also at Non For Long Media is brought to you by our friends over at Fudge Kitchen. They ship Fudge sweet treats across the country. FudgeKitchens.com. You know the drill. They are the best. Every year in Carolina, I got everyone Christmas gifts. Got them a little something. Something like the drink, something like that. Maybe a bottle, case of beer, glass of wine, and then boom, box of fudge. Of course, because you got to. First class. They loved it. FudgeKitchens.com. They ship fudge and sweet treats across the country. Listen, Jack, there's a lot going on in the NFL. We got to talk about these NFL fights, these training camp fights, these joint practices. Everyone makes a big deal about. The positive of the joint practices, you can simulate high intensity game-like situations. I think they're harder than games because, hey, this drill is inside run 9-on-7. This drill is a passing drill. So it's like 3rd and long or like 4th and goal all the time. It's like Armageddon. Everybody knows what you're doing and they got to stop it. So that had some advantages. It protects your quarterbacks and gets them in high stress, high pressure situations. it's really hard, and guys get sick of hitting your own team in training camp, so it allows you to hit another guy. That's the positive. The negative is these fights. I think the fights can be a positive too because you're defending your players. It builds camaraderie. As long as nobody gets hurt, it's a positive. I love the fighting aspect of joint practice as a hockey guy because you could show your teammates, I truly care for you and I'm willing to defend you with my health and well-being. Football is that way anyways, but I love the fact that football allows you now in these joint practices to fight a little bit like hockey. It becomes self-policed because you can't self-police football. A flag does. You can't lose your mind and go after a guy. You get kicked out of a game, that's a hefty fine. That hurts your chances to play longer in your career. So that's why these joint practices, man, allow you to blow off some steam and go after guys. The problem is, and the negative is, guys go out of the way to really, just be a missile and take you out. And it doesn't matter. There's no repercussion. Like you could score at a practice, it doesn't matter. But you can't do that in a game because there's going to be a touchdown. There's repercussion. So to me, I think joint practices are actually harder than games, in my opinion, from being a part of whatever half dozen of them in my career. So the fights are what they are. There's a lot going around the league. The Ayuk stuff. People are ripping him, and people are saying. Some guy said today the Niners are done once they get rid of him. Their shots of being a Super Bowl contender are over. Have you seen that roster? And probably what they're going to get return is going to restock the cupboard for them, draft pick wise. They've been aggressive with picks over the years. Trey Lance, different people. It's going to help their salary cap, and they're probably going to get a player that's probably ready to play right away. That's cheap, I would guess, right? If I'm them, I want a player that's cheap, ready to play, going to be an asset to help that team win because they're definitely in win now mode with a quarterback on a rookie deal. So saying the Niners are a team that if Ayuk's on the move, they're not the same. They have depth at receiver. They have players they've drafted in the first round, and they have Debo and C-Mac who can do both. So let's pause and say it's over all of a sudden when they got great depth at running back. They have great depth at receiver. The Trent Williams thing is the biggest deal to me, Jack. He needs to be on the field. He's going to be on the field. But it's just kind of, hey, listen, Trent, take some time off, keep chilling. We'll see you in training camp when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, the Ayuk thing, I don't know. I feel like some people realize, but others not, that there is a difference in the NFL between business and personal relationships. And everybody expects with these big money contracts, like, oh, Lamar hates the Ravens because the Ravens didn't give him his contract yet. He despises them. He wants out because they didn't give him $250 million right away. Like Ayuk in this situation, like everybody's up in arms, like, oh, he dapped up John Lynch. He's coming back. He's a Niner for life. Ayuk is not an idiot whatsoever. He understands the 49ers are in an insane cap predicament. And it's a good thing. It's a very good problem to have for the 49ers. But he also understands they just paid Debo Samuel. They have to pay Trent Williams. They have to pay Brock Purdy, who's going to be going from making $800,000 a year to $50 million a year. They just drafted a wide receiver. He understands the rubber has to meet the road at some point, but he also sees CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill all making $30+ million a year, and he understands, well, I can get that. I'm 26 years old. A team that needs a wide receiver one will give me that money, a la A.J. Brown, the Philadelphia Eagles 3-4 years ago. It's just a very weird situation. People are like, oh, he wants $30 million and he understands the 49ers can't give it to him. So it's a very cordial relationship while they figure things out. And I don't understand why people can't grasp that. I feel like that's a very understanding thing to have. Like, even look at Green Bay. Jordan Love was partially holding out and Green Bay was literally having him practice. They were like, oh yeah, Jordan's great. We're just working on the contracts. Like, it's just like that, except a trade's involved because a guy wants $200 million or so, and he can get it, and he's deserving of it, and he's not going to put himself out there and risk 200, however much it would be, $90, $100 million guaranteed. I feel like it's a very simple thing going on. Very cordial situation.
Great point, Jack. Check out our friends at BoronUSA.com. Arnica, natural health, love what they do there, and our friends at the original Fudge Kitchen, fudgekitchens.com. Jack, I'm looking through the Athletic here for things for you and I to talk about, and I just can't not think about the NFC North. I just can't not think about them, dude. I think they're going to be the best division in football. I could say that, and I would say I think the NFC West, now I'm an NFC guy. I think the NFC West is going to be better than people think. I think Arizona is going to be vastly improved. I think the Niners are what they are. I think Seattle is really good. AFC, I think, man, this is the most talented, deepest NFL I think I've ever been a part of. I mean, Denver's your question mark team. Okay, who's your question mark teams that you know are like, ugh, gonna be a tough year maybe?
I mean,
I think
I don't
Denver's
know.
going to be good in a couple of years. I think they're building it right.
Mhm.
Who's your teams that you're like, going to be a tough year?
I mean,
Arizona's
going through
not that team.
my first thing that's running through my head is I've had that same thought that you have had many times in the last
And it
years.
all
I
worked
feel like,
out. I know somebody's got to lose. I get it.
but it's a bunch of the things if players are going to decline, draft picks are going to bust. We're at the point where it's like everybody's the idolized version of what that player is. And sometimes for better or worse, for injuries, things don't turn out that way. New York Jets last year. Everybody thought they'd be a Super Bowl contender.
They still won a bunch of games, though.
I know. I'm just using them as an example that not everybody lives up to the expectations for things that they cannot control.
No doubt.
And it's just the things shake out. But I mean, looking through, I mean, teams. I mean, obviously, Dallas is the one thing. The teams that concern me are the
is loaded with talent.
The teams that did not make any moves in free agency or much in the draft are the ones that concern me. That because I mean, like New Orleans. So the two of that would be New Orleans and Dallas.
They're the two teams in the league that jump out to you that are going to have a bad year
from the point that they didn't make any free agency.
Yeah, but that doesn't bother me. Like I think the Saints won, right? They're still in a rebuild, but they're a proud organization. They're kind of trying to figure out what they got to do.
The thing that really concerned about Dallas is their defense is great. Their passing game is great. They're one-dimensional. Their running game is very weak. I don't think either Ezekiel Elliott or the name is losing me, the short running back they had last year from Kansas State. I don't think either of them, Deuce Vaughn. I don't think either of them is capable of even being a running back 2 heavy carries at this point.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Jack. But they're going to win 8-9 games.
Yeah, but again,
that's my point. So my point is, the bottom of this league is so strong now. Let's go to the AFC East quickly. Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Patriots. Okay, the Patriots are rebuilding new head coach, but everyone else, that's a Super Bowl contenders. All 3 of them are Super Bowl contenders. No?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. AFC North. Let's go NFC East. Commanders, Cowboys, Eagles, Giants, right? So there's 3, I think, good teams in that division. The Giants are rebuild mode, but I think the Giants could come out and surprise people just because everyone's shitting on them. You know, like they'll be that team this year that actually does okay. I think the Commanders are better than people think. But let's just say there's one team in that division that probably will have a losing record.
I would say maybe Washington, but like a 7-8-9, like a 7-8 wins, just because Jaden Daniels, completely new team.
Right around 500, probably beat someone they're not supposed to, lose somebody they're not supposed to. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So let's just say 3 out of 4 in that. Pretty damn good. AFC North, every team's good. My opinion.
Yeah.
NFC North, Bears. I'm liking it. Lions, loving it. Packers, right? Question marks, but a super exciting and young team going in the right direction. Vikings, Sammy D. I'm just telling you, that defense, the second year under Flores, Hawkinson's coming back midway through the year. I think they're going to be a good football team. They're going to be around 500, right? Like or above. NFC South, Texans and Jags. Okay. Probably going to be pretty damn good teams. The Colts, Shane Steichen, I like him as a coach, Jack. I like their direction. Your boy Anthony Richardson, I know you like him too. So it's like, okay. And then the Titans, they went out and spent some money now sneakily. Like they're Titans, whatever. They're heading in the right direction. Second year for that quarterback. All right. NFC South, right? It's up in the air. It's kind of always been since my era of being in it. Bucks, Falcons, they're the 2, right? Saints, Panthers, what are they going to be? Who knows? Right? And am I wrong here with any of this?
No.
And I can, if I'm wrong, speak freely. Cut me off.
Yeah, no. I think the Bucks and Falcons are kind of be fringed. I mean, one of them's has to make the playoffs because it's just how divisions operate.
They're both good football teams. I think they're both good football teams.
They're like 9-10 win teams.
Yeah, that's pretty good football. Broncos, right? They're the team out of that group. Chargers are going to be better than people think. Chiefs are going to be obviously Chiefs, and then Raiders are going to be better than people think. I'm just saying, like dumpster fires.
I would put Vegas in the dumpster fire category.
I know. I like Pierce. I like the direction they're going.
You can like the direction they're going in, but you could also understand that it's going to be a rebuilding year. Same thing with New England.
But it's not going to be a dumpster fire. It's not going to be imploding. Like those years in Jacksonville when they were bad, dude, it was like bad.
I know, but I'm just looking at this team. I mean, Minshew, we know what Minshew is. O'Connell struggled. I mean, their running back group in Vegas is kind of like Dallas. I would say even worse than Dallas.
No, I
The
like
wide
Al-
receivers,
I like Alexander Madison better.
but outside of, it's Madison, Amir Abdullah, and Zamir White.
I'm a Amir fan too. That's what you're
But
there.
I don't know. I'm
I
sorry.
hear you. I hear you.
I don't like their
listen,
offensive line.
I just don't think there's dumpster fires anymore. I just think there's teams that are going to lose, but they're not a dumpster fire. Like Antonio Pierce in the right direction off the field. Mayo and Patriots, they're in the right direction. The Titans, there's a plan. It's Callahan. We're going in there. The league is healthy. That's where I'm going with it. Like the Saints, that coach, that he's coaching for his job, right? Yeah. Panthers is set. He's going to be there. They're moving in a new direction. They're going to run the ball. Falcons. So like I'm just saying, I mean, I could be wrong, and I love to compare it to years of the past. Like when teams were bad, they were like bad, like oof. But now it's like these point spreads are going to be tight, real tight. So,
yeah, I mean, again, this is another sort of thing with the coaches, and I wouldn't disagree with you on how I feel about all these coaches. But we're also seeing 8 new head coaches, and I feel like everybody feels this way about new head coaches before they even step on the field. And some unravel themselves right away, like Denver last year with Hackett, or 2 years ago with Hackett. Like,
there's a lot.
We get excited about it. I'm just saying, yeah, there's a lot could happen, and it's just a lot of this is stuff It's like the NFL-wide equivalent to a fan thinking their team's going to go 12-4 this season. They're like, oh, schedule's a lock. We're going to get one upset win, and we're 12-4.
The parity of the league, though, the competitiveness is at a high level.
I mean, I think you could also say the NFL is also always has been, at least in my eyes, the most parity-driven league in American sports, at least.
The lines are
maybe
always...
hockey. Hockey, maybe you could make a fight for, but basketball and baseball, there's always 5 teams that are above the rest the whole way through.
Yeah. Like just quarterbacks, right? Bills, Dolphins, Jets, good quarterbacks. Patriots, they drafted a kid to be the future. Cowboys, Eagles, right? Giant. Like there's just like, I like it. Like Daniel Jones, people rag on him, but like he's been in a Pro Bowl. Like he's got the Bengals. I like the quarterbacks in the AFC North. I like the quarterbacks in the NFC North. I do. I've been a Sam Darnold fan. I've said it for years, and I like the quarterback they drafted out of Michigan to come in behind them when the time is right. I don't know. I'm optimistic about the league. I'm optimistic about the health of the NFL, and I'm bummed I'm not in it, Jack, because these boys are getting paid, bro. Paid, but it's good. I'm happy.
You're like Rob Lowe wearing the NFL hat. You're just a fan of the league.
I'm a fan of the direction of the NFL. Enjoyer. When I was in it, I thought there was not as good as players as there are now. Whatever that's worth. Yeah. All right. That's enough for me and Jack. Anything else, pal?
That's all I got. We talked Ayuk, talked Lawns.
Yeah, I'm excited for Seattle and what Mike McDonald's going to do too. There's a lot of excitement. Like the whole league, there's something. There's like Seattle turned over Mike McDonald. This guy's young. He's hungry. It seems like a guy's going to be there for another 10 years. That's what it seems like. Now, again, 12-4, everything's sunny days, blah, blah, blah. I get it. You're
experiencing what the rest of us common folk experience in August when we see those few videos from training camp. We're like, oh, football's back. Like, we're back. They're throwing spirals. I'm not saying you're buying into that hype, but like you're feeling that, like, it's like,
all right, NFC great. West. NFC West could be the best division of football. And I'm going to say NFC North and AFC North. They're my 3. They're my 3. Fun fact, whatever that's worth. Let's go to the phone. 619. Mike Missinelli back at 97.5. Jack, what are your thoughts? I'm going to tune in now. I like Mike.
I think that's great. I'm in a tough spot where I really can't listen to a whole lot more sports media than I do because I'm in a lucky enough position where I consume sports media and I create sports media for 8-9 hours a day.
Yeah, you got to get away from it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Mike's great. I mean, I listened as a kid.
Yeah, so did I. I that's why I listen to hockey podcasts. It's true. I get a lot of good stories out of it. I get enjoyment out of it. I learn new things for our show out of it and our media company. Good stuff. Jack Connell, Colin Thompson, thanks for tuning in. BoronUSA.com. Support our sponsors, guys. That's huge help for us. And then Fudge Kitchen, fudgekitchens.com. Kent Johnston, Bud. Thanks, brother. You're the best, Ken. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Have a great rest of your week. All right, a good friend of mine, legendary human being, strength coach in the NFL, college football, mentor, just overall fantastic human being. Bud, Ken Johnston, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Colin. It's good to be with you. Great to see you.
You too, man. We got on here. First off, we broke my cardinal rule. Start the recording right away, catch up after. So we've been talking for 20 minutes about important, good stuff about the
Good
future,
stuff.
work, life, like a pending child
Yep.
coming soon. But it's great. We got on here and started laughing right away. We didn't even say hello because it's been a minute. We've had some fun. I was with Coach Johnston in Carolina. Thank God for you, Kent. Thank God for you, because without you, Jeremy Scott, and he's listening, would be running us into the ground in the NFL. So thank you for Rudiment. Thank you for the pool. All of the things that my rickety old body needed to go in Carolina, you came and you were sent from God himself. So thank you.
I enjoyed every minute of it, and I wish we had some of those times back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? We got our work done, but we had a lot of fun.
It was great.
And you can't do that every place. It was just, we had a good group of people, hard workers like yourself, and you know, it was trying, but we had a lot of fun. In the middle of adversity, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be COVID, for those that aren't keeping score.
Right.
You know, and I was planning to get into Carolina heavy, but it really sucks we didn't win. And not because of, everyone gets paid more and no. It sucks because, especially that second year, even the first year, what a great group of people who are overqualified,
right,
and who are doing the right things.
Right.
And the ball just didn't bounce our way a few times on and off the field. And it's funny, the finite difference between like 5 and 12 and whatever, a couple games above 500. And you know this from this league, it's really small. Like, it's very small and way smaller than you believe. I'm not saying everything was perfect and we should have won and been in this whole playoff Super Bowl team. I'm not saying that. But there was times there I'm like, man, we are really rolling. And I've been with some organizations for Carolina. I'm like, we're this is going to be good. And it's a shame. I mean, your thoughts on that? Because you've been coached around this league for decades, but just like how hard it is to just even break 500, let alone, get into the playoffs.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think for any new head coach that came in just prior to COVID, and you mentioned this a couple of minutes ago,
nightmare.
It immediately puts you behind the 8 ball. And I think that's what happened to Matt there. And he would never use that as an excuse, and I'm not using it as an excuse. But I think I'll never forget this, Colin. I worked for the Cleveland Browns at one time, and I worked there for Mike Holmgren, and Eric Mangini, who was one of the greatest coaches I ever worked for, was the head coach. People just don't know how good a coach he was. But they let Eric go. The next year, they brought a guy in named Pat Sherman. And I'll never forget this. Pat was there for 2 years, and then we had an ownership change, which anytime you have an ownership change, normally they're going to clean the house staff-wise. But the first year that he came in, we had a players' off-season strike. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
So he didn't get his players until July. The next year, the first day of training camp, they gather everybody up, the first practice, and Holmgren steps in and he tells everybody, look, here's our new owner. So going into the season, the players knew we have a new owner. There's going to be new staff. He was behind the 8 ball, and in many ways a new coach, I think, that went into the league pre-COVID and was there for those 2 years. They really could not physically carry out the program implementation they would have otherwise. So I don't think a lot of people that are experienced with football, that are not experienced with football, pardon me, know how important that is. And so, that was an issue for everybody.
Relationship building is everything in every profession, and even for an accountant, right? Because you got to know the people to give you the money to organize it. It is massive. And in football, in my opinion, it's the only thing. If you don't have relationships in this business, and I'm talking about friends that help you out, I'm talking about trust, so I can be honest, and you could be honest, and you can reflect, and you could pour into me, and then I could pour into you, and you can pass it along. If you don't have that, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter. When you watch the Niners play, or when you watch Cincinnati, where your son who recently retired played,
Right.
you could see the relationships when they played. You could feel it. It was different.
You're right.
It was different. And in Carolina, we had great relationships with people. But I had several players, and I've said this to Coach Rule, saying like, man, I just for first year really just didn't have a good relationship with them. Like, it wasn't like it was a bad thing. Like, people were saying bad things, saying like, I just really didn't even like. I'm like, think about it, guys. We're in masks every day. We got tested every day. The year after that, we wore masks for 2 straight years. You can't even have a conversation with people. Right. It was like team meeting, go to practice. Like, that's not even real, right? Like, if you go in Coach Rule's office, we had to sit like 30 yards away from each other. Like, that's not football. I got to put my face on someone and have someone cut my knees out every other play. Like, for me, there was alternative reasons to do that. And that was because of the relationships with people in the building. Like, that's truly my why, is the team, is the group. It's not anything external for me. But, I think that's the hardest part for Coach was we have shields on. And again, it's fact, not an excuse, but it is fact. And that was really, really hard times in the league. I mean, we forget about it. We move past it because it was such a dark place. But, I mean, we had to go lock ourselves in suites inside the stadium because we'd have an outbreak. Remember those days?
Yeah, I do. And I was having a conversation with my wife this morning. She's a functional wellness RN. And she was having a discussion with an individual. And this individual, for insurance companies, life insurance, not short term, but life insurance companies hit the nail on the head in terms of life expectancy. And she was talking to this individual, and to your point, this individual said that you can predicate how quickly somebody is going to die in our society when you put them in isolation. When you put grandma in isolation in a nursing home and she's alone, then the facts, the stats say she doesn't have long left on the planet. So to your point, we weren't made to be isolated, and in particular in that sport. It just was an enigma that occurred. And obviously, I don't agree with everything the league did. It's a lot easier for me to say that now that I'm out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how I left was directly related to those disagreements. But that being said, everybody's doing the best they can. But that was a time period unlike what players and coaches had been through the previous 50 years. They never experienced.
Crazy. I mean, literally, it was crazy. We don't need to waste much time on it because we've moved forward. But neither here nor there. All right, Ken. So, right, there's the hardest part for when I interview my friends here is like, how can I pull the good stories out of them? Not even the good stories, but the journey, the wisdom. Let's start here. Your book. You have a new book. I bought it for my father-in-law. I bought it for my dad. I bought it for our house. I'm a horrible reader, so full transparency, I haven't opened it yet because I really struggle reading. But
understandable.
I'm going to get into it here soon. I told myself it's going to be some summer reading. talk about your new book. Why'd you write it? And, what was the timing behind it going out, recently?
Well, first, thanks for being interested in it. When I left the NFL, as you know, my last few years in the league, I was not a coach. I was the director of player wellness, so I was more in an administration capacity. And I really enjoyed that. But what it gave me the opportunity to do, and what Matt actually gave me the opportunity to do, the freedom to do, is I had, as a player, we tried to do this behind the scenes without drawing attention to something, because you guys have enough on your mind. But I had developed, along with a colleague in the track and field world who's very well known, a health management model. Okay. And for each of you guys, we wanted to ask 4 questions. How do we keep this player from getting sick? How do we keep this player from getting injured? How can I help this player perform optimally? And what's my role in that? And the system was very integrative. In a lot of NFL and many of the jobs I worked previous, there are a lot of silos. And so when I left, and silos are bad because they build little communities within a silo, and they prevent that relationship aspect from taking place. And they don't respect another's job that's trying to accomplish the same thing you are. Well, that goes on all the time in society in general. And so when I left the league, I said, okay, why can't this model work? Why can't the elite athlete wellness model work in our general society? Because most people are stuck with their health, Colin, in a reactive mindset. In other words, when something goes bad is when we do something about it related to our health. And I think most of us would have to admit that's the truth. But and I thank God for modern medicine, for tests and evaluations, for surgery, for emergency medical care. So strong. But they're not the total picture. And the good people in that practice are very admittedly, look, we're not the only solution. We need a proactive plan. You guys had a proactive health plan throughout and during your career right now. You have somebody oversee your training, oversee your nutrition. You have people on the side that can be there in case you needed to go see a pastor or a sports psychologist. You have people from security that help with family matters. So there's this bubble created around an NFL player that does not exist for the common individual like myself now on the street. That's what the book addresses. The book addresses, how do you take this model that is used to protect and insulate guys that are making $10, $20 million a year, that their owner can't afford for these guys not to be on the field, nor can their teammates. How can you take that model and make it applicable in general society? And that's what the book's about. Aruka is the name of the book, and Aruka is an ancient language word that means rebuild and restore. And that's all I'm saying is people today need a proactive healthcare plan, because if they continue just to depend on a reactive, at some point it's going to bite them in the butt, or it's going to bite a family member. And I think we all know that, but I think some people just don't know how to start.
Yeah, it's a great point. How to start, right? We all can go through people listening right now, it's either, whether it's ourself, whether it's our family members, whatever it may be. It's amazing what social media now provides, especially with the algorithm of my wife and I are, athletes. My wife played Division I college lacrosse. She's a geriatric PT.
Right.
So we get so much stuff, magnesium, high protein diets, like such good stuff. I'm better than I had throughout my career. We follow certain people that talk about a lot of good stuff. Hey, this type of cereal, right? Not that we're like going crazy and we're never, having a beer or, never doing this, but it's amazing. 90% of our life of the health part, or 80% or wherever that is, has gotten even better. What we thought, that good 80% of we were eating good and whatever, that's even stronger now. There's more access to things now, books like Aruka, right? And I made the same debate. Now I'll switch over into coaching.
Right.
There's an opportunity in this world now for our athletes to get even better. And it's not physical. I think it now has to do with coaching. And the other day I'm at the gym. I wheel the bike outside when I'm at the gym, get some vitamin D, get a little suntan, and enjoy the Annapolis summer, right? And there's a good little turf patch out there. And a dad who's a good shape guy brings his kid, who's probably like 8, right? It's the summer. He's 10. And he had his son doing bounding drills at like 10 years old. And I was like, I didn't do a bounding drill until I was in the east end zone with Kent Johnston in bare feet on that beautiful grass field in Carolina.
Yeah.
And you were teaching rudiment and bound. And I was like, what the hell is that? My first day in Carolina, I went to Jeremy and said, what's the run? He's like, what? Calm down. I'm like, Jeremy, last time I saw you, I was dying on the turf field. I was the toughest I've ever been. I was in the best shape I've ever been. I was a bad man, but I was a wounded man. So now I want to feel good. I'm in the league. Is it going to be the same? And he's like, trust me, there's this guy, see that guy right there, Ken Johnston, and myself, and Tom and Belrose and Andy Altoff, and this great group, Kate, we're going to get it right. All right. So I felt the best and played the best under you guys, but neither here nor there. I saw a dad doing bounding drills with his kid. And I said, man, I didn't do those till I was 26 years old. Wow. And I'm like, and I know the guy, he's a youth football coach in the area, and I helped him with a couple things. And I said, where are you getting this stuff? He's like, online. I just look up a couple speed drills, all the stuff on Christian, which goes viral, of him bounding and skipping. And he's like, I just do some of that with our kids. Nothing crazy. But I was like, wow. Before, I had coaches just yelling at me all the time, right? Get moving, not like, hey, how to move. So I digress, and I'm long-winded there. But really, my question to you is, do you feel the same way? And is it because of that? Or do you feel the same way for a different reason that, I think, yeah, athletes will evolve because they're eating better, bigger, faster, stronger evolution. But also I think there's better coaching. Your information is right at your fingertips now instead of going away for 4 years to study it. I think that's applicable really for anything. But now, because of this device, I could go on there and learn a ton as a coach. And even for the youth, I can find great drills from Coach K in basketball. I can look up Kent Johnston working with his son and how to work out soreness and stiffness. So I'm long-winded, but I'm painting the picture for our audience of,
sure,
I think the world's in a better place in several things, but primarily when it comes to coaching and access, and a lot has to do with technology.
There is no question. I agree that there is great information out there, and it allows an individual who in the past had no access to that knowledge to take it and apply it. That, to me, Colin, is the good side of it. If you flip the coin, I do think there's a danger. And the danger to all the knowledge that is accessible is to apply it in the wrong way or in the wrong time. And I'll give you an example from something you just said. Dr. James Andrews is a really good friend of mine. I've worked with him. I've done rehab for him before. He's probably the most renowned sports physician in North America, certainly has more people that are now orthopedics out there than any other physician. They interned under him. And he wrote an amazing book. And the book basically is saying we specialize way too early with our kids. And what we need, in my opinion, along with this boom in technology that is so advantageous to all of us, what we need right now is not more knowledge, we need more wisdom. We need to know when and how to apply the knowledge that we do possess. And for instance, I'll go back, I wrote a book, and it's odd because I wrote a book back in, I think it was 2014, and I had a contract in the NFL that forbade me from doing anything other than an NFL activity. Well, I wrote this book, and I ended up sticking it on Amazon, but I never marketed the book. And it's all about, I studied for about 15 years developmental programs for kids from all over the world. Anything written in English that I could get my hands on. How do you create an athlete, basically, was what I was studying. And one of the conclusions, which I think is very, and if there are any parents watching this, I really, if you don't want to take my word for it, just begin to do your own research. The thing we're lacking in developing athleticism in our young people is a lack of movement skills. And there are 12 primary movement skills, Colin: balance, walking, running, sprinting, jumping, hopping, skipping, shuffle or slide, throw, catch, kick, strike. And they're all different, but there are 36 movement skills. Every single one of the other ones dovetails off of those 12. They're key. Now, my point is, I've developed what I call an injury risk analysis, and it's a video profile I do on individuals that picks up movement dysfunction that can lead to injury. And I do that on, I can't say even how many kids that I've done this on in the last couple of years. The primary cause of movement dysfunction among most of these kids is they never learn to perform the skill correctly in the first place. And that drives injury later on down the line. So when we take our kids and we specialize, back to this bounding example, if that kid does not have the stability built to properly biomechanically perform that bound, he will end up causing erosion in the tendon ligament structure or the cartilage structure, even at that young age of that child's anatomical framework. So that's kind of where I'm getting to. We've got to go back in many cases, because we don't have physical education in the United States anymore, per se. We don't have any movement skill knowledge. We have a lot of guys that know in our sport how to teach somebody to take a 3, 5, 7-step drop, how to teach how you run an out route or a drag route. But you ask that same coach that's in the NFL, I want you to teach this guy how to sprint and jump correctly. They couldn't do it. And I'm not knocking those coaches, because that's not their area of bias. Nobody ever taught, it's not part of the curriculum. So, with all our modern technology, we're still very, very underdeveloped, not in biomotor abilities, like how to get fast, strong, powerful. We're undervalued in teaching movement skills, fitness skills, and sports skills. Not so much sports skills, but those two primary ones. How do you squat correctly? How do you lunge correctly? Because why would I possibly put 135 pounds on somebody's back and let them start squatting if they can't squat correctly with their body weight? I'm going to end up driving issues for them later on down the road. So really this vacuum of skill knowledge is a problem. And we should be promoting that, I think, as the predecessor to getting bigger, faster, and stronger. Because you will get stronger, faster, and bigger the right way if you're mechanically set up for it.
And it's probably a little bit of a microcosm of our society, of the microwave of, I got to just go do it instead of.
Exactly right. I guess you hit the nail on the head. You said in about 5 seconds what I should have said.
No, it was beautifully put. I mean, it was fantastic, but it's our society, right? Instead of foundation. Here's a question for you. These college off seasons, okay, this training, right? As I'm starting to look and I'm doing some research and I'm just have some buddies in college coaching and I'm just figuring out what my next step is. And like these guys, we started in January. We don't stop till December.
Yeah.
How would you map it out from a physical perspective for a college? I know that's a loaded question, and we could be here, and that's fine if we're here. I don't care. But like, do you think that starts too soon, January, or there needs to be movement pattern based stuff, or like I know you got to develop kids. They're 18-year-old boys, but I felt like when I got out of college, I was like, whew, man, we unloaded the clip, which is good. We are champions and maybe a better player. I wouldn't be in the NFL without it. So it's like the old chicken or the egg, right? Or you put the cart before the horse. But your thoughts on that? Because again, folks are not listening. You started your college off season the minute your spring semester starts. So let's say first or second week in January, and then you're rolling. I mean, you may have a week off in July, maybe a week off and maybe in May. And then that's it. How would you do it if you had a blank slate, not attached to any, a school schedule? How would you do it from January all the way through the season?
Well, I would. I guess the best way I know to put it is I would ask the question, okay, what am I trying to get accomplished? And because let's face it, Colin, the greatest resource any of us have is time. And the second greatest resource is our health. If you don't have your health, you're not going to have a lot of time, or your time is going to be, it's going to be inert to a large degree. But I would start with assessments. I would do more assessments on my athletes than are currently being done. And the reason I say that is you can't even manage what you can't see. And I would try, but I'm a big believer in grinding. I was a GA for Coach Paul Bear Bryant at Alabama. And he was the king of hard asses. He was the original prototype. And ask any of these guys that are still living that survived the Junction training camp when he was the coach at Texas A&M. So I believe in the work. But after I assessed these players, what I would do is lay out a schedule in which my decompressive acts matched my compressive acts. I want to stress that player as much as possible because I understand that mental resiliency comes from being pushed into situations that you really would not walk into on your own volition. Coaches have to take players there. Big believer in that. That's the most successful military operational training.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have resiliency without it. I'm a Bible worldview guy. That's how God deals with people. It's no question about it. So that is a required prerequisite. But what we are lacking in the overall football coaches, performance coaches, athletic training, we're lacking communication. And in many cases in college football, the biggest driver of injury is the head football coach.
That's super strong.
And I hate, because it's the athletic performance coach that always gets tagged with that, or the athletic trainer. But if the head football coach is driving his players compressively into the ground, it's like winding up a spring. At some point, they're going to break. And each person, because of pre-existing conditions, that's why you want the assessments. It's one of the big reasons you want those assessments I talked about earlier. Some are going to break sooner than others. Some are going to break later than others. But they're going to break eventually. And if the head football coach, the density of his practices, in other words, day after day after day, and the intensity of that practice session, that Monday, Tuesday, if those things are continually driven into a compressive nature with no opportunity to decompress the body and also the mind. Coaches don't think, and coaches panic if they think somebody is outworking them. And I understand that. I've lived in that world. So it's very legitimate that we want to be able to outwork somebody.
But is it work harder or work smarter? Right.
That's exactly, you hit the nail on the head again. It's about working smarter.
Yeah.
And you and I both believe in very hard work. We've already stated that. But that's the problem, Colin. And again, I say this, and I've said this to head coaches before. Don't be the biggest driver of injury in your organization, because it can easily happen. It can very easily happen, because the buck stops with you. If your strength and conditioning coach isn't doing a good job, get rid of it.
Yeah.
If your athletic trainer's not doing his job, get rid of the athletic trainer. But don't blame injury that you or your assistant coaches created on two people in the organization.
You think that's because they're all former players and or they're all former coaches that have learned from people, right? Like, it's like, all right, I'm 20, but I learned from a 50-year-old who was born and, raised in the, mid 50s, 70s football era, right? Like, do you think it's because of that? Do you think it's because, right? Like, Coach Rule played for Coach Paterno, right? And then I played for Coach Rule, right? So I still have those same beliefs, but I see it with maybe a different lens. Or like, do you think we're behind in that because of who we learn from? Or do you think it's like people maybe just aren't paying attention to it and don't think it's as important?
I do think that we get stuck in our own mindset. And I'm not saying that mindset's sometimes not good, but I want to say this, Colin, and this is based on a lot of the research I did for the book. Here's what and if any coaches hear this is not just a statement being made without, like I said, researching the subject. The players today do not possess the physical constitution of their grandfathers.
Grandfathers went to work every day, got up, moved tile, cut wood, worked in the coal mine, worked in the cornfield, etc.
Yeah, and even like there's data in with the military of looking at soldiers 20 years ago and using bone density studies. And the drop in the bone density of today's player, it's astounding. So you have this proliferation of injuries, and we're always looking at what the environmental surface looks like or how we need to change our strength and conditioning program. Really and truly, what we ought to be looking at is what is causing this degradation of our structure so that we're weaker in structure than we were generations ago. And I think there's a number of reasons for that can be pointed to scientifically. It's not just one thing, but coaches need to know that they're living the 21st century. Let's look at it this way. Flip to the health side of it. If you live in the 21st century, Colin, your body is exposed to environmental toxins that didn't even exist on the planet 150 years ago. There was no certain type of chemicals. There were no genetically modified foods. The biggie, there was no electromagnetic pollution. That permeates all of us. And that's a whole nother discussion. But what I'm trying to get to is this is a unique time period where with all the technological advances, the top three causes of death in the United States are heart disease, cancer, and number 3, oddly enough, is medical error.
Wow.
Both of the top 2, those are not infectious diseases. And if you took autoimmune diseases and lumped them all into one category, they would be at the top of the food chain. These are chronic degenerative diseases that have sprung up and proliferated exponentially over the last 50, 60, 70 years. You know, prior to that, infectious diseases were the number 1 killers. That's not the issue anymore. And many people call these ecogenetic diseases. They're diseases that have come about by the environment changing, the changes in the environment changing our genetic profile. So the problems we faced are not the same problems that Coach Bryant faced, that Coach Paterno faced at Penn State. The mindset of the athlete has changed. We haven't even talked about that. Now, I don't think it's changed for the better because people are not as tough as they used to be. But believe me, I've lived at 68 years old. I've lived long enough on the planet to tell you, the guys I coached in the late 70s and early 80s, they were tougher, more resilient people than today's athletes.
And it has nothing to do with, I mean, of course, some things play a role, but it has nothing to do with turf or the grass being good or the cleats. Or it has everything to do with the genetic makeup and your habits as a young kid or as what your parents did. Is that what you're saying? Really?
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's funny. You see like a little, again, social media. I saw like a little meme or GIF. It's like, well, Grandpa, he smoked, a pack a day. and he, and he did this and he did that, but also, and he lived till he was 90 and strong as a bull. Well, they're like, well, also Grandpa worked in a tile factory and picked tiles up all day long.
Oh my gosh, buddy.
Right?
That's such a great analogy. I mean, yeah, we just don't do stuff like that anymore.
No. Well, we go all day about it. It's good. It is the microwave society. That's what we're in, and it's unique, and there's so much to unpack. Of course, we're 40 minutes in, and we're you and I have only got through 3 questions, so I got to ask you one more football one. I mean, there's so many. Bear Bryant. If I don't ask you a question about Bear Bryant, we'll go quick hitters here. I'll run through a couple of people, but just a bullet point or two or a story or two on Bear Bryant. I have to ask you about him.
Okay, well, first of all, I was a graduate assistant, and I went over there his last year.
Okay.
And he knew who I was, but he really didn't know me, Colin. And I was so scared of him that I can only remember even approaching him and having a conversation one time. And it was very, he was sick at that point in time in his life. But I will tell you this, a couple of things about him real quickly. First of all, I was at Alabama, I think 6 years. And I never, in all that time, ex-players, former players, many of which were NFL guys like Joe Namath, everybody's heard of. Not one person that ever played for him did I hear one negative comment ever come out of their mouth about him.
No way.
Nothing. And I've never coached for anybody else that I can say that about. And to me, your measure as a coach is not what the general public says about you. It's what your players, your former players, have to say about you. It's forget all that other stuff. Just window dressing. It's what your players say about you, and to me, that's why I revere him so much, because I never heard. There are all kinds of stories. I do know this. He was up in the tower, and when he came down that tower, you could hear his keys rattling. And you didn't know if he was coming down there to chew a player's butt or a coach's butt. But I can tell you this, Colin, every booty hole on that field got tied.
Amen to that. All right. You always talked about Mike Holmgren whenever we would get in a conversation, and about how much he was a special person. Can you talk about him and his style, and maybe another coach that you coach with that you were just, and it's not a disrespect to any coaches you won't mention, but sure. I know you spoke very highly of him.
Mike Holmgren was the best coach I ever worked for. He was the best head coach I ever worked for. I want to put it that way. Andy Reid was the best assistant coach I ever worked with. And I want to say why I believe that, because Andy and I are still good friends to this day. We were very, very close when we were at Green Bay together. But Mike Holmgren was just organized, and he had a demeanor about him when he stood up in front of the team. He had a charisma. He was the only guy in the room as far as the players were concerned when he spoke. And he also did me one of the biggest favors of any coach, and I actually write about this in the book. Colin, after the first year we were in Green Bay together, we had 5 players in our off-season program because nobody wanted to live in Green Bay.
They still don't.
They still don't. And so,
but they win. Great organization.
That's right. But he called me up and he said, Kent, I'm going to do you a big favor. I said, "What's that, Coach?" He said, "From now on, as long as you're with me, I want you to seek out the best of the best at what they do. Coaches, performance, speed guys, nutrition, dietitians, orthopedics, physical therapists, you name it. Whatever affects the health and performance of our football team, you find those people. You go spend a week with them. The Packers will pay for it to consult you. You come back, bring that knowledge. You're going to become a better coach, and it's going to make us a better team." So I did that for 12 years. Every year I would go off for 2 to 3 weeks at it. And when the players weren't there, that was, obviously in February, March. Mm-hmm. And I would sit under these people, and they became part of my network, people much smarter than I was. And I think it did play dividends, not just for me, but for the team, And so he was the best head coach. The best assistant coach I ever worked with was Andy Reid. And the reason is this. I think there are two types of football coaches. One is the guy that coaches. He's a great coach on game day. And then there's the coach that's a great teacher during the week and prepping his players to play in that game. And sometimes coaches are good at prepping but terrible on game day. And sometimes they're real good on game day, but they're not good teachers. Andy Reid was off the chart on both ends of the spectrum. And I'll never forget Colin. Like I said, we were good buddies, and he would come down and we'd just shoot the bull in my office down in the weight room. And I remember he came down, I think it was the year before he ended up going to Philadelphia. And he said, "Man, I don't think it's ever going to happen." And I said, "What are you talking about, Coach?" He said, I'm ready to get a head job, because he had kept notes. This is how, just like we were talking earlier, this is how I'm going to do it. His wife even kept notes, Tammy.
What a great lady. Great person.
Yeah.
Great family.
Yeah, great. Oh, I love them. But at any rate, Steve Mariucci had got a head job. John Green had got a head job. Dick Geron had gotten a head job. All these guys. And Andy's still sitting there with the Packers. And I remember sharing with him, I said, "Brother, you and I both know that's going to happen. It hadn't been your time yet. Hadn't been your time." Well, his time came later after the end of that season. And I will say this, one of the great and Andy's been so good to me. I regret not going with him, because he asked me to go with him. And of course, I was committed to Mike at that particular point in time, because Mike had given me a job when he didn't have to. But there have been 2 other occasions since then, actually 3 times total, that he's offered me a job, and it just never. Either I had already committed somewhere else, but I regret that, because it's not working for him so much, it's seeing him in action behind the scenes. That's what I regret, because there's nobody better now.
What makes him that great, though? Is it the way he treats people? Is it his knowledge?
It goes back. It starts with the relationship that you talked about earlier. He's a relationship guy, but he also, now, since we're all weathered a little bit, I think he's a father figure to a lot of those guys.
Oh, huge.
And unbelievably prepared. So, I think, and it just brings me great memories and I wanted, when we were at, and I'll say this, when we were at Carolina and I wanted to hire his son, who's a strength and conditioning coach, to come in and work with Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't do that because Jeremy needed to hire his own people.
Yeah.
That was, I wouldn't have liked that if I had been in Jeremy's. So I've resisted that, although, and it turned out better for him in the long run because now he's at KC working for his dad.
He's got some rings.
Yeah, you got some rings.
We're sitting on the couch talking about it. He's still going.
Exactly
Oh,
right.
man, look at us.
That's
Well, listen,
right.
bud, we could go all day. I'm going to have you back on because we didn't even get into real football stuff. We just told some great stories. I appreciate you. You said how how your players feel about you, what's mattered, your people that are with you working. I and many people have never, ever said a bad word about you. Only rave reviews from Matt Paradis, C-Mac, Sammy D, a great group of men. Jeremy Scott, you name it. We love you, buddy. I do personally, and I'm thank you for everything.
Colin, thank you. It's been great to visit with you, and I'll look forward to next time.